Blog Talk Radio.
We are the UR Tennis Network. Our mission is to be the voice of tennis. We enlist a team of passionate enthusiasts to promote our sport. We strive to bring interesting perspectives on the many spins of tennis. Our goal is to provide the learners of our sport with current news and information from many angles. We seek active participation from communities interested in tennis, but tennis is not interested in them. We are expanding our outreach. Tennis is a true lifetime sport that needs to be talked about, and the UR Tennis Network pledges to pursue this idea relentlessly.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Parenting Aces radio show on Blog Talk Radio's UR Tennis Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and we've got another great show for you today. But before I bring today's guest on the air, I want to take care of just a couple of reminders and housekeeping things. First reminder is that we have a new email subscription service for ParentingAces.com. So those of you who are used to getting email notifications when new information is posted on the website, you'll need to go in and sign up for our new service, which is hosted by GoDaddy.com. And go ahead and enter your email address and click on the subscribe button. It's right on the website itself on the right side of the page. Very simple to do. So please take care of that little piece of business so you don't miss any updates on the site. Second piece of housekeeping news is that there is a lot happening in the world of collegiate sports right now, and I am getting articles and emails and messages on a daily basis, it seems, on all the changes that are being discussed and being implemented, not just in college tennis, but in college sports in general. And so I really am hoping to keep you guys up to date on that through this show and also through the website, through our Facebook and Twitter feeds as well. And for those of you who have kids who are close to college age, I encourage you to please stay up to date on what's happening. Recruiting rules are changing, scholarship stuff is changing, and I think it's really important that we parents stay on top of this, especially for those of us who have children who are aspiring to play collegiate tennis at whatever level, Division 1, 2, 3, junior college, whatever level they aspire to. It's important that we stay up to speed on what's happening on that front. So please check in on a regular basis with me. If you have questions or concerns about what's happening in college tennis or college sports, shoot me an email, shoot me a Facebook message, tweet at me, and if I don't have the answer, I'll do my best to find it and report back, okay? So thank you for that. And also, just a reminder that we air live for an hour for this show. At the end of the hour, the show does continue to record for our podcast, but we will go off the air at straight up 1 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you missed the very end of the show, you can always tune in later today and check out the podcast. It'll be online on the radio show page at ParentingAces.com. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. So be sure to check that out. Okay, that's it for my housekeeping. So let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. We have a different kind of show today. My guest is Marissa Gould. Marissa is a former top junior player, a former top collegiate player at Stanford, and a former top WTA Tour player. She was the number 1 ranked doubles player in the World Junior ITF rankings. She was the number 19 ranked singles player in the World Junior ITF rankings. She was the 1997 U.S. Open Junior Doubles champion. She was ranked number 1 in both singles and doubles in the 18 and unders in the U.S. She was number 1 in the Southern California section of USTA in every age group from the 12s through the 18s. She was ranked as high as number 1 in the college rankings in both singles and doubles and was the Pac-10 champion in both singles and doubles. She was a member of the U.S. national team and by the way, stayed in traditional high school. Her highest professional ranking was 51 in singles, and she was on the tour from 2000 through 2005. Her best showing at a Grand Slam was that she made the third round 3 years in a row at the French Open from 2003 to 2005. And she reports that her most exciting win was against Daniela Hanchikova at Indian Wells on center court, where she won 7-6 in the third. She is now a mom of 3, elementary school teacher on hiatus, and an author, a children's book author. So please join me in welcoming Marissa Gould to the show. And Marissa, thank you so much for being with us. And oh my gosh, what a list of accomplishments. I mean, it's just incredible what you've been able to do. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm very happy to be on, so thank you for having me.
So let's start by kind of rehashing your experience through junior tennis, because my target audience with Parenting Aces is parents of junior tennis players, but I also get some coaches that tune in, and we all have lots to learn from each other, and that's why this show exists. So if you could, can you talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Southern California, playing junior tennis, and attending regular school through the process?
Sure. Southern California is traditionally one of, if not the most difficult sections in the country. And when I was growing up, I think on the U.S. national team, at least half of the national team members were from Southern California. So we had a very tough and very competitive section. It takes a lot of dedication. I joke around now that I'm a mom and I have 3 kids of my own, and we have spring break and winter break and all these different breaks and what we do on the weekends. And I was kind of looking back and I thought, gosh, I never really experienced those as a kid. Once I became serious about tennis, from about the age, I guess maybe around 12 and older, I didn't really experience those breaks because tennis really is a year-round and, pretty much full-time, pseudo job for a child and for the parents. So I understand the dedication that it takes and that the parents and the kids are putting forth, but as somebody who went through it all, I can say that I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was an extraordinary experience, and I was able to, play all over the world, to play collegiately, to play professionally, and I'm grateful, for what tennis has given me through though a lot of hard work and dedication, no doubt.
How involved were your parents in your tennis as you were growing up? Because we've heard from, some former players who said, my parents never came to a match. They never, they never
right.
did anything except they were the checkbook behind it. But, and then we've heard
right.
from others whose parents were very involved. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I think my parents would probably fall in the more involved area of the spectrum. I think regardless of whether your parents are attending all of your matches or, as you said, I do know personally plenty of people whose parents never attended one match for multiple reasons. Maybe they have, 3 other kids that they're trying to take care of, or some parents just, I think, get too nervous watching their own kids play, or some kids get too nervous having their parents play. There are many reasons why parents, choose to or choose not to come to all of their kids' matches. Regardless, though, I know that parents have to be involved. There's no child, certainly that I'm aware of, that is able to succeed really at anything, whether it's tennis or another sport or just any other activity, even school, just in general. If parents aren't involved actively with their kids and engaging in whatever the activity is, I think it's very difficult for a child to succeed. So tennis is no different than anything else, for sure.
Do you have any, vivid memories of times where your parents did something that was like, oh my gosh, I have the most awesome parents in the world, or did something where you thought, oh my gosh, I wish they would just disappear?
That's a funny question. Well, if I'm being completely honest, I've experienced both. So, I think, to be fair, the first thing that you said where I say, gosh, they're the most awesome parents in the world. I think as kids, when you're young, you often take what your parents do for you for granted. So you don't realize that, gosh, they're waking up with me at 6 a.m. and driving an hour so I can play my 7:45 a.m. match at some random high school, and then I'm going to have another match if I win that one, and that's going to be our whole weekend. You don't fully appreciate that. If your parents are doing that with you, then they're not doing something else for themselves. So I think I really appreciate it more now that I'm an adult. I hate to say it, but it's true that I look at it now and I say, gosh, my parents really had to sacrifice a lot for me to be at those tournaments every single weekend, 2 matches a day, sometimes 3 if, there was doubles involved, or 4 even. So I think, unfortunately or fortunately, I appreciate that aspect of things more now as an adult. I certainly understood that, my parents were paying for lessons and that they were driving me, and I certainly appreciated it as a kid, but I think I appreciate it more now that I'm an adult and a parent myself. As far as wanting my parents to just disappear and go away, absolutely. My parents were not and are not perfect people, and there were certainly times that, I felt they were being too hard on me, or that maybe they said or did something that was embarrassing. So I don't think just because I was, a top junior doesn't mean I was immune from that. And I think oftentimes the top juniors are the ones that have that feeling the most. So it was definitely a two-way street in that regard.
Right. And so when you transitioned from juniors into college tennis, I have to ask, just because this has come up so much lately, was there ever a time where you thought, I'm winning a lot, maybe I'm ready just to go straight to the tour and bag this whole college thing?
There was a lot. I was ranked number 1 in the nation as a junior, and I had traveled, pretty extensively internationally, although not as extensively as many of my peers because I was in traditional school. So of all the members on the U.S. national team, I think I was the only one who was attending a traditional high school. So I didn't travel, probably as much as they did, but certainly basically there wasn't anybody I played with that was a top international junior that went to college. There wasn't anybody that did that. I was the only one. So there was certainly that pressure, and, whether it's from the USTA or just other players or other coaches, and, myself in general, there's quite a rush. I remember playing the junior Grand Slams, and I remember I bought a T-shirt at Wimbledon because I thought, gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to be back here. There's no guarantee, that you're going to be able to make that transition from junior ITF play to the actual WTA or ATP if you're a guy circuit. So I remember buying a T-shirt thinking, gosh, I don't know if I'll ever be back here. I really hope I am, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I still have that T-shirt today, so it kind of makes me laugh every time I randomly put it on. But, there was that pressure to go to college, but I think because I went to a traditional high school and academics were always such an important part of my life, and I genuinely enjoyed school a lot. I really, really liked school. School was a very happy place for me. I like school. I'm a bit of a nerd. I love books, hence becoming an author now later in my life. I really enjoy kind of that geeky school thing. So for me, it was quite a dream come true. I was the number 1 recruit in my year. So to basically have the option to essentially go anywhere I wanted to college was quite a blessing and an opportunity. So I relished it.
Talk a little bit about your choice to attend Stanford and what sold you on the school, because like I mentioned before we went on the air, I'm in the midst of all this recruiting stuff with my son right now, and all of his peers are in the middle of it, and all of us moms and dads talk about that constantly and how you make that decision about where to go. Right.
Well, as far as Stanford goes, I grew up, I remember I was a ball girl at the All-American tournament that's played in Los Angeles, and I was a ball girl for Debbie Graham, and I remember just looking at Frank Brennan there, coaching Debbie Graham and Sandra Birch. They were playing each other, 2 Stanford players, and I was, maybe 10 years old, and I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be a dream come true to play at Stanford for Frank Brennan? So that kind of stuck with me over the years. And I think Stanford, for girls tennis at least, maybe for boys too, and, this was 15 years ago now, but it was kind of like the Notre Dame, for football. It was kind of the storied program for women's tennis, certainly. So that was something that stuck with me about Stanford. But, as I got older, I'm from Los Angeles. My father went to UCLA. My mother went to USC. A lot of my family's kind of split between those two schools. So there was a lot of, I don't know if you want to say pressure, but definitely a lot of talk about going to SC or UCLA, and those are excellent schools in their own right, of course, academically and athletically. So I kind of went back and forth, I would say, between all three of those schools. I knew I wanted to stay on the West Coast. I wanted to be close enough to my personal coach that I could see him when I, needed to or wanted to. I also wanted to, for my own self, I'm from LA. I don't play indoors a lot. I wanted to stay where the weather was, nice, and you could play outdoors basically all year long. So for me, those two things played a big factor. And then with Stanford, I remember I went on my recruiting trip to UCLA, had an amazing time. They were terrific towards me, and Stanford was actually really lacking a team when I actually signed with them. We didn't even know if we would have 6 girls. It was a bit of a risky move, but I remember my recruiting trip to Stanford, I felt at home. I think a lot of it is just the gut instinct. When you go to that school and you just feel like this is where I'm meant to be, and I really felt that at Stanford. It's far enough away from home, but yet close enough to home. And, UCLA was the other school that I really, really considered. So I almost went there. I almost went to UCLA. But the more I thought about it, I drove past UCLA to go to high school every day. So I went to the UCLA library to do my research for, high school term papers and whatnot. So it was nice for me, I think, and it was a good decision to just get away from home and be on my own a little bit more. So all of those came together, and then you can't beat the academics and athletics at Stanford. So all those things came together, and that's why I made the choice I did.
It's so funny because I've heard, I can't even tell you how many times now, your kid will just know when it's the right school. Like, there's that feeling. And as a parent, it's on the one hand comforting to hear that, but on the other hand, it's like, but give me something concrete,
I think, yeah. No, it's true. And I mean, it sounds so mystical, like, kind of when I don't know, I imagine the hope, my daughters or my son someday will be, Mom, how do I know when I've met the right person to marry or something like that? And say, oh, you just know, you feel it in your heart. I mean, it sounds so esoteric and almost ridiculous, and how are you supposed to know what that means? And then everybody says, oh, you'll just know. And it's kind of, I feel like it's almost sort of similar. It's like you find that perfect match, and it just feels right. So believe it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Okay, so you went to Stanford. But did you stay 4 years? How long were you at Stanford?
No, I went 2 years. I went 2 years, and then I turned pro after my sophomore year. I took a leave after my sophomore year.
Okay, and then so you transitioned to the WTA at that point. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of going from that kind of protective womb of college tennis to, real life out on the tour?
Right. Well, during my sophomore year of school, I was playing as an amateur. I was playing professional tournaments as an amateur. So I was ranked 77 in the world as a college sophomore at Stanford. So I already had a ranking that was high enough to get me into, many tournaments and Grand Slams and whatnot when I left school. So that was great. I qualified for the Australian Open, and I won a round. Lost to Davenport in the second round at the Australian Open while I was still a student at Stanford. I won several challengers and whatnot. So I had already sort of established myself in that world to an extent, but then there is a big difference when I went from playing as a student athlete who was an amateur, not collecting prize money, to a professional who now this was my job all of a sudden. And I think there's a a change that has to take place where it really is your profession all of a sudden, and it is the way you make your money, and you have to, you have to budget, you have to be serious about your training. Not that I wasn't serious before, but there is, there's a big leap. Everyone that you're competing against, especially people who are coming, oftentimes from other countries that maybe don't have all of the access and the things that we have here in the United States, I mean, they are very, very hungry for those points and that prize money, and you have to be just as hungry as they are. So it becomes a little more cutthroat, to put it mildly, for sure.
Sure. And so at what point did you decide that it was time to hang up your rackets, finish your degree, and then you even went on to graduate school? What spurred that decision?
I did. It was a combination of a ton of different things. My career was, many people say, gosh, I can't believe you retired when you were only 25. I mean, you were just beginning. Many of the girls, many of my peers that I played with, Sam Stosur, Lee Na, Francesca Schiavone, these girls won Grand Slams at, late 20s, early 30s. Serena Williams, I mean, she's in her own league. I don't think any of us are even in the same breath as Serena Williams. But, these girls are all my age. And part of me, does long to be out there and says, gosh, as you get older, you are wiser, hopefully, and you understand the game better. And but for me, the passion, you have to be so passionate, and you have to love winning and hate losing so much. I think you have to be so competitive, because if you're missing just that little edge, you will lose. You have to. It has to matter to you that much. And it just wasn't my the passion kind of fell out of it for me. I had accomplished what I sort of set out to do. I played 22 Grand Slams. I had wins over top 10 players. I did everything. I knew I had accepted the fact that I wasn't going to be number one in the world, and I wasn't going to win, the U.S. Open, and that was okay with me. And I didn't want to live on the road anymore. I wanted to have a family and finish my degree, and I wanted to do other things in life, and I saw that time for me had come, and I'm glad I did what I did, so that I didn't go out. I wanted to go out on a high note. I wanted to go out playing well and on my terms, and not go out, fortunately, because I wasn't injured, and I didn't, find myself ranked 300, 400 in the world trying to qualify or something like that. I went out, I was playing well, and, just made a next transition into life for me. So it was really just about moving on in my life.
And at this point, you said, these girls that are still really, at the top of the game are the ones that you came up with. At now, looking back, and you've been off the tour for a few years, do you ever say, I made the wrong decision, or is it always, this was the right choice for me?
I never doubt my choice. I know I made the right decision for me, because, like I said, I knew I was losing that edge, and that edge is not something that you can just all of a sudden drum up. It has to it's innate. It has to be there, that competitiveness, that just absolute necessity. You just feel like, if I don't win, I'm not going to be able to live with myself. Obviously, you get over that and you lose a lot. So only one person walks away from each week, winning all their matches. Everybody else who enters the tournament, every single person ends up losing, except for that one person who wins the event. So when you play professional tennis, you better get used to losing, and you better be able to learn from it, and you better be able to recover from it. And so that process is fine, but you still have to hate the losing part. If you don't hate it, then you don't have that edge. And I knew I would. That for me had come and it had gone, and I was really ready to not live on the road, and to, not live out of hotel rooms and bags, and I wanted my life was, I was ready to have a family, and I had met my I didn't know this, but at the time, but I ended up being my husband, and there were just, I was ready for the next phase in my life. But it's exciting to see these girls, and it makes me, I suppose, maybe feel better about my tennis. Not that I doubt it or don't feel good, but when I see girls like Sam Stosur or Lina or Francesca Schiavone, when I see these girls at the top of the game, Daniela Henchikova, Kim Clijsters, when I see these girls and the fact that they came back and were winning slams, in their late 20s and 30s, it says to me, gosh, we really were good players. I mean, these girls have stood the test of time, so it's exciting to see them.
And so you made that transition. You went back to school. You went to graduate school. You got married, had kids, and have a career. How has your tennis been part of all of that? I didn't word that very well, but what do you feel like tennis taught you that has helped you be successful post-tennis?
Right. Well, tennis will always be a part of me. Every time that I see tennis on television or any time, there's a Grand Slam going on, whether it's, and it's January, May, June, and August, September, you always get that feeling. The Grand Slams are going on. So tennis is always in me. As far as what it taught me so much. And I think that's part of why I wrote this book, because I want kids, boys and girls, to get out there to play tennis, and there's so much that we can learn, not just from tennis, but from other sports as well. You learn how to win, you learn how to lose, you learn sportsmanship, you learn how to be a gracious opponent, you learn how to be a teammate, you learn how to deal with the highs and lows of life, and life brings you plenty of highs and lows that aren't on a tennis court or aren't on a playing field. And, you learn the very strict discipline that must come with being a top athlete. And I think that served me so well in my life. I have 3 kids, and, I have to budget my time. I have to be disciplined to, get my workouts in and take care of myself and take care of my family. So I think that anybody, boys, girls, it doesn't matter. There's so much to learn from sports and from tennis in particular.
Can you recall any specific instance or happening where, not tennis related, but where all of a sudden you thought, oh my gosh, if I hadn't grown up doing what I did, I'm not sure I would have gotten through this?
I think probably the closest to that, I don't know if I wouldn't have gotten through it, it would have been exceptionally difficult, is when I did go back to graduate school. So I was in graduate school, I was working full-time as a teacher, and I was trying to plan my wedding. And basically my professors told me that this was not possible, that I either needed to stop working, do graduate school, or not plan my wedding, postpone my wedding. They basically told me this is not going to happen. No person can actually do all of this at the same time and do it well. And I kind of took that as a challenge and thought, well, you know what, I think I can. And I think a lot of that came from being a kid and, fitting in my tennis, my workouts, my homework, my school, having a bit of a social life, trying to do it all. And I think that has certainly carried me through as an adult, that I do think I take on a lot, but I think that I'm able to because I learned that discipline and that structure and that just mentality of hard work. But you reap the rewards too after you do the hard work. So I think that would probably be the best instance of that.
Sure. I mean, I write a lot about the lessons that our kids are getting on the tennis court that expand way beyond the tennis court, and I think that's a prime example, the example you just gave of learning how to manage your time, learning how to face challenges and face them with grace and get through them, and
right.
I think tennis is a huge arena for teaching those types of lessons, and I don't think you necessarily have to reach the heights in tennis that you reached to gain those lessons. I think those lessons can be gained, at the various levels of the game.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And, that's why I want kids in general. It's why a big reason why I wrote this book, as I said, because I want people to understand that tennis, it's not just about becoming a pro or becoming a top collegiate player. Those types of things take care of themselves, and obviously most people don't attain those successes in the sport or in any sport. But it's about learning a skill. It's about developing a passion for something and developing that ability to, work hard and have that discipline. And it made me think of something else, actually. Another time when my tennis, I was really channeling it, was after I had my third child. I had 3 kids under the age of 3, and I decided I needed to lose a bunch of baby weight, and I decided, I'm going to sign up for a marathon. And I am not somebody I'm not a runner. And it was completely ridiculous that I wanted to run a marathon because I hadn't really worked out as much as I probably should have during my pregnancy, and I had 3 kids, and people just literally thought I was crazy that I was going to run this marathon. And I did channel kind of that, that tennis mentality, or just that discipline where I fit in my workouts. I didn't hire a trainer. I did it 100% with myself and my little baby. I joked that she was my training partner. I put her in the jogger stroller, and she and I went out there, and anyway, I ended up running the marathon, and at one point I thought I was going to collapse during it, and I thought about this match I had played at the French Open against Nicole Pratt, where I ended up winning 8-6 in the third, and I was cramping, and I thought, if I can run and hit balls and actually think strategy, then I should be able to just run and put one foot in front of another. This is much easier than actually, running and hitting balls. So that was another time that I think it definitely helped me a lot.
For sure. All right, well, so let's talk about this awesome new book you've written. It's called A Magical Racket Ride, and it is a children's book, and it's geared for boys and girls, not one or the other. So I've seen a few of the pieces of art in the book. I know you had a separate illustrator, but can you talk about what inspired you to actually put this in book form and, seek publishers and promoters and all of that? And what are you hoping to accomplish with that?
Absolutely. Well, I wrote the book primarily because I want to inspire boys and girls to learn about the sport and why tennis is so special, unique, and fantastic. And it's a sport like no other. It's a sport that you can play when you're 5 years old and you can play when you're 95 years old. It is something, it's intergenerational. It's played literally on almost every continent in the world, I think, except Antarctica. It is, it's truly international in its appeal. It's played on different surfaces. It has tons of tradition associated with it. And I want people to know that it's an accessible sport, too. I think it's often been stereotyped as a, quote, country club sport, and it's really not. I think, maybe at one time it was, years and years ago, but it really is super accessible, whether you're at a public park, or at a school. Many schools and colleges offer camps and clinics, and even almost most country clubs will allow people who aren't members to join their camps and clinics as well. So I want people to know how accessible it is and how much fun it is. You can, whether it's just a social game or you want to play on a team someday, it can be an individual sport, it can be a team sport. Tennis just offers, I think, so much more than people even realize. And I want young kids and their caretakers, their parents, their grandparents, their uncles, their aunts to learn about and enjoy the sport with them. And, the other huge thing for me is that I am a girl who grew up loving sports, and there just weren't that many books out there that I could identify with. And I think that I have 2 girls of my own, and I can find anytime I look in a bookstore, right staring at me, I will find probably 100 princess books and ballet books for my daughters, which are fantastic. My girls love princesses and they love ballet, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, there just aren't that many books out there where there's something, athletics that's themed for girls. And I wanted to create a book where girls who like sports or who want to learn about sports, a book that they can identify with as well. But I didn't want to limit it to girls, and that is why, because tennis is just equally fantastic for boys and girls. So it's about a boy and girl. They're twins, and I'm excited that it's out there, and I think books are such a great medium to reach children. Kids love story time. They love reading a book at night before they go to bed. They love visiting libraries and bookstores. So I thought this was something that just really hadn't been done before, and I wanted to put it out there for the world to enjoy.
That's awesome. You're a school teacher by training, taking a little hiatus to raise these 3 beautiful children. Can you talk a little bit about how being a teacher has impacted your ability to tell stories and to actually put pen to paper to write them down?
Sure. Well, I taught kindergarten and 3rd grade, and my students, the more time I spent with them, I taught before I had kids, so they were really my first inspiration. Were my students. And my kids occasionally would find out, I call them my kids. You feel that way when you're a teacher. You feel like they're your kids. My students would, occasionally they would find out that I had been a professional tennis player, and, anytime you find out that somebody was a professional athlete, that's intriguing and exciting. And we would look in the library for books about tennis, and there just wasn't much out there. There were biographies, and there were instructional books, but as far as a fun, adventurous, exciting book, there just really wasn't anything out there about tennis. There was a lot out there about, football or baseball or soccer, but not about tennis. And so that gave me a little, idea, gosh, something needs to be written about this sport that I love. That's so great. The other thing is my kindergartners, the curriculum at the school where I taught, they went on a little trip around the world, obviously not a real one, but every month there would be a new country that we would visit. And the kids just loved that theme. They loved visiting each country. They loved learning about the different customs and the different foods and, what made that country unique and special. And so that really gave me an idea, too, like how much kids love the idea of new places and how much they love the idea of travel and meeting new people and learning about different worlds that are out there, essentially, different countries that are out there. So combining my love for the sport, my desire to teach kids about the sport, and that idea of traveling around the world, I thought, well, gosh, tennis is the perfect vehicle to do that. So that sort of all came together in this book, and I was actually able to go back to the school where I taught and read to them this past week, and it was just such a joy, and it really felt like it came full circle, so that was really exciting.
That's very cool. What do your kids think about the fact that Mom's a published author now?
They think it's pretty fun. My oldest, who is almost 6 now, and he's in kindergarten himself, he's definitely my little proud little guy. He's very excited, and the book recently won a Mom's Choice Award, and he was telling his teacher that his mom won a medal, and he's very excited. I think it's been a lot of fun for the kids to see the book actually become a reality, and I think it's inspirational for them too, that it's something they can do, if they want to when they get older too. And I think that's something that I wanted kids to know. I've always loved writing, and it's been a passion of mine. When I was on the tour, I would spend a lot of my time, in the hotel room or on airplanes. A lot of that time was spent writing, and most of which I just ended up, tossing and throwing away, or nobody ever saw. I never saw the light of day. But I've always enjoyed writing, and I've always enjoyed reading, and I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of people have those passions as well. So if you believe in what you're doing, it's something that can happen eventually.
Sure. Well, it's funny because lately there have been several players on the tour who have started blogs and have gotten, pretty pretty vocal about life on the tour and things they're going through. I think you were a little ahead of that whole blogging phenomenon maybe, but it sounds like you were doing it. You just didn't have the, the website.
Yeah, I was doing it. I was doing it the old-fashioned way. I was using pen and paper and notebooks and stuff like that. But you're right. I was probably a little ahead of my time. So it ended up all coming to fruition in this children's book, which I'm everything happens for a reason, right? Life is about timing and taking advantage of what's out there when it becomes available to you. So this is what was available to me, and I'm thrilled that it is now out there for people to read and to enjoy.
Before we went on the air, I was asking you if you had plans for a sequel, and you told me you have a drawer full of plans. Do you want to share any of what may be coming down the pike, or what other things you might be interested in writing about?
Well, I have lots of ideas for Nick and Molly. In this book, in A Magical Racket Ride Journey to the 4 Grand Slam Tournaments of Tennis, they go specifically to New York, London, Paris, and Melbourne. They go to the 4 Grand Slams, and that was a big hurdle actually to overcome, because those are all trademarked names. They're copyrighted. They're owned. They're owned by the tournaments or by the federations, and those federations do not allow people often to use their trademarked names. So to use the U.S. Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, Australian Open, and even to use the term Grand Slam when it refers to tennis, that's owned by the ITF. So I had to do extensive work to get those releases from those tournaments, and I have to say that each federation was just so gracious. I mean, dealing with Tennis Australia, dealing with the All England Lawn Tennis Club, dealing with the French Tennis Federation and the USTA, they were all gracious. They were all really excited to see this book being written, and I've actually received really quite unexpected but really nice notes actually from even the CEO of Wimbledon himself. He just really enjoyed the book and was excited that it was written. So it was a big hurdle, and there was lots to do to have this book, for this book to be written. As far as I know, it's the only book that mentions all 4 Grand Slams by name in a fictional manner, and the term Grand Slam as well. So it was a lot to do this book. As far as other books that, maybe in the pipeline, tennis goes all over the world, and it visits amazing, beautiful, special countries. It goes from all over Asia to Europe and whatnot, even Africa at times. So I have ideas for different cities and different places that Nick and Molly could travel to, and different tournaments they could visit and they could learn from, whether, I have lots of little ideas, but I also have a drawer full of other ideas that don't involve tennis at all. So like I said, I'm kind of a nerdy person. I love writing. I love books. So I have lots of different ideas, and I don't know. We'll see if any of them actually come to fruition. I hope so.
That's very cool. So is tennis parent a role that you see yourself taking on in the future?
If my kids want to play, I think, like anything, if you force it on your child, it will be a very miserable experience for all involved. And that's no fun, and I think that breeds resentment and mistrust and whatnot. So my kids seem to be interested. They're at an age where they're kind of interested in everything, and tennis is one of the things they're interested in. So I will see what it is that they gravitate towards, and if it's tennis, then terrific. Then it's something that I already have a little background in, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you know in several years.
Okay, I'll definitely check back in with you on that one. If they do pursue tennis, would you consider being their coach, or would you seek other coaching for them? I
would seek another coach. I would always be there, of course, as I guess maybe an advisor, if I could look at it as a role, maybe as an advisor or somebody who, it'd probably be very hard for me not to give a little bit of coaching advice every now and then. But as a day-to-day coach, I wouldn't want to be that person that's, telling them to hit 10 more forehands or get that ball, hit the ball deeper, near the baseline or something. Or that's, I think, it's a very difficult line to cross, and some people have been able to do it really successfully, and others have really, I think, suffered as a result. And I think I would rather take the approach of letting someone else be the drill sergeant and me just be the proud mama. So I'll take the proud mama role.
Yeah, that sounds really good. If you could give some advice to the tennis parents listening in terms of how involved to be with their kids' tennis and the best pathways to follow in terms of juniors transitioning to college and then, either transitioning onto the tour from there or moving into, a strictly recreational form of the game. Do you have any thoughts that you can share with us? Because we're all looking to learn from people who have been there, and it's much easier, I think, to talk to somebody like you who came up through the, quote, system and, hear what worked well and what may need to be tweaked a little bit or changed altogether.
Absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, it's important that kids know that their parents are supporting them. I think that is the number one piece of advice I could give to any parent, is that whether your child wins or loses, whether they play awful or they play great, whatever it is, if they can walk off the court and see a smile and get a hug, I think that literally will do more than anything else you could possibly do. It's worth more than any tennis lesson you could pay to give them. It's worth more than any tournament you could, provide airfare for. A hug and a, hey, good job, let's go out and get some dinner or, whatever. It goes so far. And I think that's often missed, especially in the highly competitive world of top junior tennis. That's my number one piece of advice. Another piece of advice is that becoming a pro or becoming a top, Division I recruit, those types of things take care of themselves, and it's not something that you as a parent will be able to make happen. And I think that many parents think that, if I just get the best coach, money can buy, or if my child plays 5 or 6 hours of tennis a day, or if I take them out of regular school and put them, all of those things, can create a lot of stress. And yes, maybe your child will become better, but will they become a happier, more well-rounded person? I don't know. I think that becoming the few that end up becoming pros or top collegiate players, those types of things take care of themselves. That comes from within the child. That comes from, like I said before, that just need, that desire, that just overwhelming competitive desire to win and to hate losing. And that's not something that can be taught. That's something that has to be within. So really, I think it's important for parents to remember that tennis is a skill. It's a lifelong, amazing skill to have. And it teaches your child, like we talked about earlier, it teaches your child so much that they're going to be able to use later in life. And to just kind of to sit back and enjoy the ride that their child is on with this amazing sport, and enjoy it instead of looking on it as something that has to be so stressful. It really doesn't have to be, because like I said, those kids who succeed at the very, very top levels, those types of things come from the kid. It doesn't come from you as the parent. So I think that those are my little tidbits.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because as you can imagine, I get a lot of emails from parents, in response to stuff I've written or just in response to things happening day to day in their child's tennis. And they are questions that are along the lines of exactly what you've just said. You know, what do you think about homeschooling? What do you think about sending my child to Europe? What do you think about, you know, getting this trainer or going on this diet? And I think we have so much information now, and it's so readily available. It's not all good information, but it's information. Right. So
yes.
I think it's really challenging as a parent to sift through all of that and figure out what is truly beneficial and what is just a bunch of hooey and, you know, that we need to just toss aside. And, you know, I think that's a challenge that this generation of kids is dealing with, that the kids' parents know too much and, you know, have access to too much. And so it does create, like you're saying, a very stressful environment from both sides. I mean, it's stressful on us as parents as well as on our kids.
Right. And, you know, I think in this world of social media and, like you said, everything being so readily available, there's a lot of comparing going on. Well, look, you know, so-and-so is doing X, Y, and Z. You need to do X, Y, and Z. And, look, this person played this tournament and got this ranking. Or there's lots of comparisons being made. And when all is said and done, the cream, you know, rises to the top. I hate to use this, you know, old, you know, analogy, but it's true. All of that, you know, the little things are important. The little things are important. But what truly is important is enjoying the ride and enjoying the experience. And if the child is, you know, whether they're 10 or they're 18, if they hate playing tennis, it will become a very, very miserable experience between, you know, parent and child. And I've seen that happen. I mean, plenty of kids. I saw tons of kids get burned out on the sport who were great. You know, there were plenty of kids who were, I played up some, you know, at times, and there were plenty of kids who were just amazing when they were 14, and by the time they were 16, you never heard from them again. So it's important to keep in mind that it's you know, it's kind of the tortoise and the hare thing. It's not about being the best when you're 11. I mean, that's nice, but it really is. It's a long road, and the goal for every child really needs to be to attain their best, not be compared to, you know, their neighbor, their doubles partner, their teammate, or whoever. Every person is unique, and every person, you know, their best is different. Every person's best is different. And as far as the homeschooling goes, I mean, I'm a big proponent of traditional school. And the reason for that is I am a firm believer, and I know that this isn't necessarily popular with a lot of parents now, and they say, oh, you don't know, you're talking about times have changed and all that stuff. I don't know. As far as I can tell, people are the same now as they were 30 years ago. We're still people, and we still desire social experiences, and we still desire, you know, living a, quote, normal life. And I think to the extent that that normal life can be provided for children, whether they're a great tennis player or not, is so important. I believe very wholeheartedly that if a child is a phenom, and I mean a phenom like a Maria Sharapova, who's 14 years old and is winning matches on the WTA Tour, or a Jennifer Capriati, who's winning matches, you know, those types of girls or people, they're beyond unique. They're one in a million. And for those kids, of course, it makes no sense for them to essentially, quote unquote, be held back by school. They are the one in a million. They really are. For the rest of us, normal people, it is, I think school, especially in this country, is such an important part of just life. It's important for kids to be able to sit in a classroom and have a teacher. And I remember girls that I played with who didn't go to traditional school, and one of them, a good friend of mine, asked me, I was studying for finals, we were in France, and I was going to have to go back after the junior French and take my finals at school. And I remember her asking me, well, what does a teacher do in a classroom? And I was literally, my jaw dropped. Like, she had no idea what a teacher does in a classroom. She didn't know because she'd never been in a classroom since, you know, she was in maybe second grade. So I think for me, at least, I believe that the only time a child should be taken out of school is because they are just so good that it's holding them back, and that's a 1 in a million kid. I don't believe that a child should be taken out of school in order to get good at tennis. I think it needs to be the other way around. They're so good at tennis that they can't be in school, not that, oh, they need to get better at tennis so they shouldn't go to school. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if I'm being clear, but I think to me that is, I know that that's not necessarily popular, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but that's sort of my outlook on it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and I want to respond with two things, and we're coming down to the end of the hour, so I'll be quick. But one thing you said is you were talking about social media and how different things are now with social media, and I heard something very recently that just really struck a chord with me, and that is that social media causes us to compare our backstage with everybody else's front stage. Meaning, we look at all these things on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these beautiful photos and these accomplishments, and we're comparing that to what we're dealing with, the messy, everyday stuff at home, and thinking, oh my gosh, we're behind the 8 ball. And we forget that front stage only happened because of a very messy backstage that went on for a period of time to lead to it. So I think, that really, like I said, struck a chord with me, and I'm trying to keep more perspective when I read these Facebook posts or see these, Instagram, little short videos of all that this kid did over the last weekend or whatever.
Right. No, I think that's very well said. Yeah, that's so true. So true.
And the other thing that you said that I want to just ask if you can elaborate a little bit quickly is about the phenoms, because I can't tell you how many parents I come across who feel like their child is the phenom, and yet they're playing, at our local tournament in Atlanta, and at age 15.
Right.
So can you talk about what sets that phenom apart, that maybe we can all have a bit of a reality check really quickly?
Well, I think the reality check, let's put it this way. I was ranked number 1 in the United States, and I was not a phenom, okay? So a phenom, I think, really is, like I said, that 1 in a million kid. It could be a boy or a girl. I think it's more obvious maybe with girls, because girls, I think it's more realistic for a 15-year-old girl to compete on the WTA level than it is a 15-year-old boy. So I think maybe it's a little more difficult to see that phenom boy. But the reality is that phenom is dominating. I mean, that phenom wins literally every match they play, and they can compete with a top 100 pro and beat them. I think that's a phenom. I remember actually playing with Maria Sharapova. I think she was 14 or 15 years old, and I was, top maybe ranked 60, 50 something in the world. So I was playing well, and we practiced together, and this was at Indian Wells, and we practiced together, and I have never been on the court with anyone more intense in my entire life, and this was practice. This was a practice, and she was so intense, and here I am, I'm the top, 60 pro, and this 14-year-old was basically, this isn't a word, but she was out-intensing me. She was more intense than I was, and that was a big reality check for me. So the next year I think she won Wimbledon, and, no surprise there. I have a lot of respect for her. So, I think that's the phenom. They are very, very rare. So, they exist, but unless there's serious domination going on a level that is sort of unheard of and not comparable to anyone else, I think there's a little bit of reality check that needs to go on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's a great explanation. Thank you. We are minute. So I want to just give you the opportunity to plug your book and plug your website and plug your book tour a little bit. So go.
Great. Well, please, parents out there, whether your child is a teenager or if you have a little one, under the age of 10 at home, or if you have nieces, nephews, cousins, birthday presents, Christmas, Hanukkah, all sorts of gifts times coming up, please check out my book. It's called A Magical Racket Ride, Journey to the 4 Grand Slam Tournaments of Tennis. It's available on Amazon.com. It's available on BarnesandNoble.com. It's available at TennisWarehouse.com. And it is available on my website. I can send you signed hardback or paperback copies if you contact me through my website, which is www.amagicalracketride.com. And that's racket spelled with an RACQUET. Please check it out. It's a great journey, and I've had lots of parents and kids write into me saying that they learned so much about the sport they didn't know, and tons of kids that have actually written into me showing me themselves out on a tennis court that they were now inspired to pick up a racket and get out there and play. And, I hear it makes a good baby gift even, a racket and a book for a baby gift. So get out there and inspire your little ones to play the great sport of tennis.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Best of luck with the book, and hopefully I will cross paths with you at some point. We've been in the same cities at the same time and didn't know it, so hopefully the next time that happens we'll actually get to meet face to face. But I'm just so excited for you and for the great sport of tennis to have this beautiful book now, and I hope all of my listeners will take a peek at it, magicalracketride.com, and I'll have a link up on Parenting Aces as well. So have a great week, everybody. Enjoy this beautiful fall weather. I hope you're having as gorgeous a day as I'm having here in Atlanta, and I will see you all next week on Parenting Aces.
Thank you. Bye.